Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Cindy, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yep. All good.
I'm gonna mute it just because we haven't started and we're getting set up here.
Yep, sure thing.
Brian, can you hear us? All right, we'll just hope Brian can hear in a little bit. All right. Give us about 6 minutes here, Cindy. All right, we're unmuted on one phone or on one computer. Mr. Petersburg is on the phone right now because he's having technical issues, but I've got 5:30 and I think we're ready to go.
Okay, so we'll call to order the public hearing regarding the budget and the notice that is now required and has buried me in ridiculous amounts of paper. Have we had any public comments?
No.
Does anyone wish to speak on the budget? Seeing none, we will close the public hearing and call to order the regular meeting. No, by way of roll call, we have 3 directors physically present and I believe 2 participating remotely.
Yeah, I gotta turn that. That's a problem. Because
I
Brian, you're gonna have to mute your computer. Maybe you're on your computer now, Brian.
think you need to move his phone away from your computer. I think that's the reverb. I think you're.
Okay. Turning his phone off. We can't hear him and he's, that's weird because he's muted, so he's on his computer, so he's picking up the audio that way. And he's now given up, so
So
Our-
on your phone, he was not zooming on your phone. It was just.
he was on my phone and then he connected, when we started hearing the echo, he had obviously connected his Zoom, so he was,
He
he
was
was-
hearing, you're hearing.
he was hearing, yeah. All right,
So is he virtual or not virtual?
right now he is not in the meeting virtual at all.
Okay.
And Cindy?
Cindy is patiently waiting.
I'm here. Ron, thank you for leading the meeting tonight.
No problem. Okay, so we have 3 in person, 1 remote, and 1 who will hopefully be joining us at some point.
Yep.
The mission statement, Carol, can you read that?
Sure. At Decorah Community School District, we embrace student learning and well-being as our fundamental purpose. We will, in partnership with our students, families, and community, make the world a better place. The mission of the Decorah Community School District is learning, thriving, creating our legacy. The vision of the Decorah Community School District is Decorah Community School District will be a collaborative, innovative, learning-centered organization empowering students to embrace their personal strengths and create their future.
Thank you. We have a consent agenda, various items. I didn't see anything requiring,
Approve the agenda?
oh, yes, let's approve the agenda. Anyone want to move?
I move that we approve the agenda for April 8th, 2024.
I'll second that.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, consent agenda, I didn't notice anything requiring individual action.
No, but just, should we talk about the personnel,
Uh,
just to clarify, or how do you want to?
just think about a personnel item, rehiring, Megan Gates.
Okay.
Is there something we need to amend on there about the years of experience?
We have her coming back at 19 and a half, because that's where she would be when she left. Per the master contract, though, it says the max you can bring in if you're a new hire up to 17 or be
Okay.
placed at 17. I didn't know how to
So
handle
let's-
her
let's-
since her resignation was,
Yeah,
On a leave.
let's take that off and we'll review it for next month.
okay,
Because I haven't had a discussion about that one.
Okay. Any other items requiring attention in the consent agenda? Or if not, entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve the consent agenda items.
I'll second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, this is the time for communication from the public. Anybody want to address the board? Oh, come on. Okay, seeing none, we will move on to the presentation for tonight, which involves cookies.
And stickers, and stickers.
Yeah, is it okay to go ahead and,
Um,
or are you playing up?
well, I was gonna bring it up,
Then you'll click.
moving on, Nicole.
If you pull it up, you will in fact have to click.
I do understand that.
Okay.
Something like this?
Like that, perfect.
Are you gonna give me, are you gonna give me a little bing like they, like the old slide?
Well, I apologize to those of you who are in Zoom land, Cindy will have to get you a cookie. There are Viking Pride cookies and stickers, so we'll have to hook you up, okay?
Oh, well, I'm so sorry to miss, but Shanna, I'm really looking forward to this presentation. So thank you in advance.
No problem. Well, first of all, thank you for your time and for having us. We appreciate this opportunity. I'm here with two of my colleagues, Mackenzie and Carolyn. Mackenzie is our new social worker / guidance counselor, and Carolyn is our positive behavior support teacher, both at Carrie Lee right now. So just very, very grateful to have them, as well as every member of our social emotional behavioral team here and on board with us. So to start us out, we are talking about therapeutic classroom supports across our Decorah Elementary School. I'm very cheesy and always start with a quote. One of my favorites from Aristotle is just the idea of educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. So when we talk about supporting social emotional behavioral health and SEL, this is kind of where it all starts. And we all know there's mounds and mounds of research about the importance of all of this and why we really need to do these things in our schools. It's not just the academics, but we really have to make sure that they have all the skills to succeed, not only in the classroom, but throughout life. One of my favorite quotes is the idea of students have to Maslow before they can bloom. So if you're familiar with Maslow's hierarchy, it's all about that, making sure that all of our students feel safe, that they belong, they have their basic needs, self-esteem, confidence, and competence to do hard things, to take chances and to learn and grow. And before we can do the other things, to remember, understand, to create, we have to have those basic needs met to be successful. We also know that supporting SEDH and SEL leads to improved classroom behavior, classroom and school climate, which again is essential. If we can't focus our attention, pay attention, it's really hard to learn new things. It also helps long-term life skills, including self-awareness, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. Leads to enhanced academic performance, reduction in high school dropout rates. Oh, you got click happy there. And a higher probability of post-high school engagement as well. So that's kind of the why behind it and the research that leads to the importance of all of this. So with that, last year, actually 2 years ago, we started applying for therapeutic classroom grants. Last year, we did receive the grant. So we were one of 10 districts across the state of Iowa who received the grant. We were awarded $266,000, so over $250,000 to go to therapeutic classrooms and supports. This funding we have found out recently, we can continue to enter claims and get continued funding every single year. So the claims for last year will total about $86,000 is what we're looking to receive for continued therapeutic funding and supports for our students.
And we thought it was just 266 and we were gonna portion it out and we were gonna.
Correct, and then
Let
we
it-
got a
let it
fun
last.
letter from the state, so yeah, so we're kind of excited for the potential opportunities to come,
Okay.
absolutely. So this is just a little bit about what the therapeutic classroom is, and it's that whole idea that we're providing additional support for students either have an IEP or who do not have an IEP, who need a little bit of extra emotional, social, behavioral support to be successful in the classroom. And again, that idea of not just in the classroom, but beyond the classroom and throughout life as well. So a school district may have therapeutic classrooms. Some places like East Reality, where I work, it's a whole separate building. But this also includes not only the classrooms that Mrs. Remen runs, but also support that happen outside those four walls as well. So we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like, but really just any supports that help our students to be successful when they need a little bit of extra support. So the implementation rubric is very, very intense. Lots and lots of pages, lots of work. We've had a really amazing committee who's helped to implement this and make sure we're doing it with fidelity across all areas. So we're just going to divide it into kind of the big focus areas: support for our qualified committed professionals, development of therapeutic classroom supports, family and community supports, therapeutic intervention systems, and then program-wide components. So the first one is probably one of the biggest things we've dove dived into so far. But the idea of just providing support for our teachers as well as our other educators, professionals, administrators, and making sure they have the tools in their toolbox to help some of our students who have the highest needs. We're seeing an increase in students who are having challenging behaviors, mental health concerns, and we're just making sure we're prepared to support those students. So we've done a lot of professional learning as a committee, but then throughout our building as well, throughout the elementary schools. So things like attending the BEST Summit that's offered, at FBA to BIP, so learning about behavior plans, de-escalation strategies we've done across all of the elementary staff, as well as with middle school and high school educators. A huge win, which was really exciting, was hiring a social worker guidance counselor for Carrie Lee. So guidance counselors, the recommended ratio was 1 to 250. Amanda Hahn was supporting 1 to closer to 500, and across 2 buildings, adding a third when there were major needs. So this has been a huge need that we've been working on for a really long time. One of the things you may see coming is we are looking to increase those hours if possible, with this increased funding that we are having. So we'll see if that works out. But also looking to improve systems to better support students, staff, and families. And some of our next steps, we want to look to hold youth and mental health first aid trainings and continue to focus on adult mental health to make sure we're supporting our staff, not only in helping students, but that they are healthy and comfortable as well. The next one is family and community support, and this is the whole idea of our families are the first teachers, right? We have to engage them to have success in learning. So just building awareness of mental health concerns and social emotional learning, helping to teach our parents who maybe don't have the background that some of us do. So we've done things like Viking Pride Tips of the Week, every week sharing those social emotional brief tips, following up support with student SEDH needs, helping connect them to outside resources. And we're really excited for our upcoming Viking Pride Night, where we're going to have some mini learning sessions for parents, as well as a dinner for all students and families, and then some engaging activities for students as well. And then another big part of this is just providing and helping them connect to local resources for additional needs. And then those positive childhood experiences, engaging family events. Our last STEAM event had just under 400 people, as well as live sharks and dogs. So it was pretty awesome.
400 people.
Program-wide components, this is an area that we've worked really, really hard on for the last, I'd say 5 to 10 years with our PBIS team, but just continuing to build on the idea of all of these skills. They don't just come naturally, especially to preschoolers and kindergartners, but we have to teach them. We really have to teach, model, practice, and promote all of these social emotional skills that lead to Viking Pride, which is respectful, responsible, and safe, and why the cookies are here. They connect. We do community service projects right now. In pop tabs. We've gotten hundreds and hundreds of pop tabs. One of our TK students currently has cancer and is fighting that battle. So we'll do a donation to his family as well as donate to the Ronald McDonald House to help support him and making sure everyone can support their kids during those challenging times. We're doing more assessment data collection on social emotional competencies. We've enacted an SEL social emotional curriculum over the last 5 to 7 years. And just again, those positive childhood family experiences, as you can see up there, that's our Friendsgiving, having pizza party. That was on our FEC. That says donating food to the food pantry, and that's our friend Brett from TK. And these are just examples of some of the posters you'll see throughout our buildings where we teach, model, practice, and promote those skills to show that Viking Pride. Then this one I'll turn over to Carolyn, just about what it really looks like in the therapeutic classroom.
Yeah, I guess at first I just really want to say thank you to Jana for all of the work that she has put into getting these resources in our district. I think it is really important. My day is definitely busy. Currently, I'm serving, I'm meeting with and seeing between 15 to 20 kids, maybe a little more than that on any given day. Sometimes that's just a really quick check-in, greeting in the morning and making sure that the student is ready for learning, is there with what they need. Our students are facing some very hard things outside of the school building right now in our community. And that might be something that's kind of newer to Decorah, but it's definitely prevalent when we look at our kids, some of the challenges that they have outside of the building that they carry with them every day. And so, yeah, greeting kids in the morning, doing some specific check-ins to make sure that they have what they need. I do some push and support in classrooms that have some extra behaviors or just struggles going on. I do some pull-out support for kids both with IEPs as well as without IEPs that now have the DBIPs, which we've created through the therapeutic classroom. And then sometimes just giving kids kind of a calming space or some space to either get out some extra energy or just to kind of desensitized to everything going on around them and kind of just have a break from all the sensory things going on in the day. So, I also just really want to say, I'm very, very, very thankful to have Mackenzie with us. She's been a huge help and a great addition. And I would love to see her here more. The other day we had a student that really needed a guidance counselor, and she had asked me, I forget, like she had asked me a day, and I said, well, can it wait for Mackenzie until for Mrs. Olson when she's here on Friday? And then we didn't have school on Monday, and she asked me again on Tuesday, and I said, can it wait for Mrs. Olson when she's here on Wednesday? And the kid was like, no, it just really can't. And so Mackenzie graciously zoomed in with the student, which was wonderful. But our kids have struggles, and I'm thankful that we've got these resources and these supports in place, and just the more we can do to meet kids and families where they're at is a big thing. So thank you for your time.
All right, so with that, we just invite you to stay engaged. So sometimes it's a little bit harder, we don't have the sport events and the speech and those things that you can get into as much as you can maybe in middle school and high school, but you are always welcome. Call first, you can buzz you in and have a plan, safety first. But to visit our early child and elementary buildings, we'd love to host you, give you tours, help you engage. Reach out to these amazing humans, to our guidance counselor, our other PBS teachers, our administrators, to learn more about these programs and how you can support. You can also see a lot of this information on our Westside John Klein and Carol Lee Facebook pages, and just the great things that are happening, because sometimes those aren't as in the media as everything else. So just seeing all the awesome things that our staff are doing is really exciting. And then we have some family events coming up. Certainly our spring music concerts, our music teachers are phenomenal. Our Viking Pride Night is on May 15th. You'll get a free meal if you choose to attend. And then we do have a big field wellness day on the 17th, and Dana, the Carrie Wellness Day, field day, 20th. So you are welcome to engage in those. And wait, one more. I did want to give one quick anecdote. One of our teachers had shared, she was so excited. Our special teachers have been engaging in some social emotional learning a lot because of this grant and the work we've been doing. And she was so excited. They started these calm downs and areas, even the specials classrooms, because we know kids can get dysregulating specials too, right? And she said it was so amazing because the student was already using the calm down space. So they only do one at a time. Another kid got really upset. She thought the other kids might tease or point fingers or things like that. And she wasn't sure exactly what was happening, but she got closer. The other students around were saying, hey, it's going to be okay. Why don't you try this? And they gave a couple strategies for taking deep breaths and doing the different things that we've been learning. I got teary-eyed, and she's just like, I've never seen anything like that before. She's like, I thought they might be teasing, but no, they were saying, it's gonna be okay, I got you. And that was pretty cool. And that's kudos to all these amazing humans and our elementary educators and our families for all they're doing. So with that, just a reminder, as educators, we've always prioritized academic achievement, which we should still do, but it's also essential to recognize that well-rounded education goes beyond classrooms and test scores. Our therapeutic classrooms and truly are all of our SEBH work in general, to put our students with the tools necessary to navigate the complexities of not only school, but life in general. We're raising not only better students, but better humans, and that's what Viking Pride is all about. And that's why there's cookies and stickers. So I hope you enjoy. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Very good.
And there's plenty of cookies for that.
Did you pass them around the room?
I did. I offered everybody.
Feel free to come up and grab them.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the presentation. It's great to see that we can meet all the needs of our kids, or more of them anyway.
Absolutely.
Okay, now we'll move on to new business. We have a review of proposed summer projects, and it looks like it could be a busy summer.
Yes, as we were going over, I know every district we've been in, we call the summer projects, and it probably could maybe be better served as just capital projects, because not all of these projects will be done this summer. But we tried to organize it so you could kind of see what we think the carryover of the budget will be, what we anticipate the revenue being, and then what we have for expenditures. Pepple, obviously the big thing is the roof, and we hopefully have way overestimated what that roof will be. But until we see some bids, we don't know. And I think we've got a pre-bid meeting this Thursday. Okay. And he's gonna do the bids two different ways. One do it all this summer and a little bit in pieces. And it's not a roof that's super conducive to do in pieces because it's not a normal roof. But depending on what the contractor says, I think it's our goal to maybe probably have it all done this summer. But if somebody can't do it all this summer, we want to at least get the big parts done. And I think off the top of my head, and not seeing Jake here, but we probably would vote for gym as high priority and maybe library. So, and we've got, we put LP filling station on there just in anticipation, of continuing to look for propane buses, which we'll, know more about coming up, but we did have one of those in the district recently, and Ron was able to come over and ride, and Ron wants one for home now.
I don't think I have parking for a bus.
Okay. But I think one of the comments you told me, which I'd heard before with other drivers, is the propane buses maybe have more power than gasoline buses. And one of the reasons you don't want to drive a gasoline bus is, apparently I've not driven a bus. The hell outside of Central City on a diesel bus, we'd have to floor it to get up the hill. And on a gas bus, it wouldn't even have done that, but the propane responds more like a car with the pickup. So.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of skepticism amongst the drivers when we started, but it went away quickly. Just accelerating on the left turn, pulling out of the building here, it was kind of a, wow, that's pretty amazing reaction from several people they took turns driving. We went up Drake Hill Road, out here, which is a pretty good, climb. And by the time we got back, everyone was thinking, I want to drive this, so. Very encouraging.
So, and this is just kind of, we're presenting it this month, so the board can have a chance to look at it, ask questions, and we'll bring it back next month. You'll see the save, we kind of have those blocked into things that we have to do. There's some, when you get down to the save proposed expenditures, a lot of those things like, rental fees, copiers, computer leases, those are kind of annual costs. We do have adaptive seating in the auditorium. That's not something we do every year, but that's, I guess we felt like that was pretty significant to make sure that we were compliant. As we get down to the other, expenditures, then the second tier is kind of the things that maybe we would like to do. As you look in there, there's, rigging for the, auditorium. The seclusion rooms, we need to bring those in compliant. Second part of the furniture order for the middle school and Carrie Lee. I did put in there, we have a tentative estimate for the mini splits at John Klein. That would be bringing air conditioning to John Klein. We're still working on some other stuff. As we get these numbers, anytime a number wasn't there, we're still asking for those numbers. Probably what's important to know, as we get to the bottom, I know, I did start make a list of John Clydem items or Hively items that we would defer. And so that's where tennis court resurfacing, for $50,000. We're not recommending that, but we want to make a list of all the things we're not doing. And so we should add in there John Klein roof and, obviously we don't want to be doing stuff if a new school is imminent, but we also need to kind of track that stuff.
Is the mini splits for the air conditioner, is that done anyway, or is that something that?
Well, the mini splits, that would be a new thing, and that would be air conditioning the inside rooms at John Klein.
So that would be another thing that would be on the list.
Well, that would be a discussion that we would need to have, because there would still be a couple of years where there wouldn't be and then you have to, like, we know what a number is, it's $163,000. That's a pretty big number for a couple of years of air conditioning, but it's also pretty hot. And so, I know Rick and I have both been approached about inside air conditioning, so we've at least got a number, but yeah, to your point, that would probably be something we might look at deferring.
Would those require going through the roof?
Yeah,
To make penetrations for the purchase line.
Isn't that gonna get
continue
the fire
to,
marshal's ire?
The fire marshal?
Yeah,
No,
I thought when we talked about that before, it was if the second you go through the roof, all of a sudden we were,
that's if you're ducting, air ducting and stuff like that.
so a small hole's okay?
Let's get, Can't those mini splits be ducted out through the side? I think they can, can't they?
The question of mini splits ducted out the side, well, these are the interior rooms, so we'd have to go through walls to get outside.
Right.
This would be like the library, the rooms that are inside the, I guess, the cocoon, for lack of better.
So there's some opportunities with the gym walls and coming down inside the gym and breaking off from there, but some of them you just have to make roof penetration for the refrigerant lines.
We'll surely have some discussion before we even look forward to going this direction with me, Tim.
Yeah, we're just presenting it and we were collecting numbers on stuff and we can move stuff down and say this is a priority and this is, air conditioning on the inside of John Klein, we at least have a number and so we know, and again, hopefully it's a 2-year number, so then we could say, yeah, let's defer that. But we're
Okay.
just looking at it this month.
And these items aren't necessarily in the order for priority.
We started to prioritize, like I would say, the Pebble is pretty short list, but for Save, it's maybe grouped in a little bit. But, yeah, we could continue to, prioritize it as well.
Tim, I appreciate having a big list to have on our radar, because one of the things that we talked about this last year was just to have you personally visit the buildings. And I know that you have time blocked out every week that you're doing that, and like just having eyes on everything. And it's really helpful to have a strategic big list like this. So it's nice to look at the big picture rather than having asks that come up as a surprise. That's happened a few times since I've been on the board. So I think that this is a good start. My question for the board is there anything that is glaringly missing that's not on this list that we should consider adding?
I don't think of anything now, but I'm sure in 2 or 3 months, there'll be 3 or 4
Yeah.
things that are gonna.
Yeah, I agree. I'm in the same situation. I can't think of anything to add. I just, the mini splits, I just want to make sure that, Tim, you already answered the question, that we have plenty of conversation before we start, think about pulling that trigger. And I know with the outside air conditioners, that happened really quick. And I think this one, we need to have some more conversation. And I know you plan on doing that. So I appreciate that.
All right. We just wanted to get this, on the radar for this month. But we'll work on getting it prioritized for next month and having questions and, bring it back in May.
Sounds good.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion on the summer projects? Okay, let's move on to the first reading of code 606.5 regarding field trips and excursions.
And this change is a little different change than we talked about with a couple people last week. This change is just making it so that we can have the permission taken in on Power School. So we added that language in there that reflects that. So this is a small change, but as we were getting ready and thinking about registration for next year, we wanted to be able to have the ability to have parental permission given during the online registration process. So you're looking at that policy. It just says that in like light green. So that will be our recommended add to this policy.
Yeah, I'm not seeing the green on, I'm looking in the wrong place.
It's about second paragraph. On mine, it's green.
Mine's
Mine's
green,
not,
but
but
I see where
I
it
see where
is.
you're,
Okay.
Doesn't say Power School, but
Yeah. Just talks about written parental.
Yeah, written parental permission, and we added the language or consent given during online registration. So We didn't want to have it be specific Power School in case
Yeah.
we would switch to a different online registration system. I am realizing that this document is a PDF, and so they're not gonna see anything that I'm highlighting right now. So, but I can share that with the board or as,
So would that be at the beginning of the school year, a permission, blanket permission for the year?
yeah.
Is there any thought that should do that, on a field trip by field trip basis?
Well, that's what we're trying to get away from is doing, online registration and having permission slips that way.
Mhm.
And then the field trips become notifications.
I'd say, allow people to do it online, but, for each trip.
I
Oh.
would say parents are always notified that there's a field trip, and I guess we could ask principals that, but.
Yeah, if we,
My,
like, I
in
don't
my
know,
experience, that would be the case, that parents would always be notified.
we don't have a DocuSign kind of agreement that we could have parents, sign, so, if it's not, if we want to get permission every time, right now, I would say the only way we could do that is parents, sending in a signed piece of paper, but I'll defer to the principals in the group that,
I'd say the nice thing here is that with registration, obviously, families are all completing it, so you can just kind of hopefully work through all families that way, and then, like I said, as Carol was saying, each field trip, the grade levels are communicating with parents, let them know what's happening and kind of what's going on, or if they're going to NHD or whatever it may be, so.
In detail, I mean, the
Yes.
parents receive all the
Maybe
detail, and it's
efficiency
via email, so then it actually, we know it gets to
Yeah.
the parents, it's not
We
like
got
a
permission.
kid's bag to go home.
We're not worried about kid, did they have that permission slip, it's we're leaving in 10 minutes type of situation where it's just things, fall through the cracks at home, things get busy, so this just allows that overarching permission, and then the details, like Carol said, come in when the actual field trip comes in.
Mhm.
I just worry somewhat about a consent being given for a field trip that no one's even thought about yet. If in August, they say for the whole year, then something comes up in February and, well, obviously the parents didn't
What I would
evaluate
kind of
that.
anticipate to that question, Ron, is like, okay, in this case, like in the past, you're just getting a permission slip paper form every time.
Yeah.
In this case, you still notify the parents of this, and they can still opt their kid out of a particular trip. So you're just, basically, the efficiency comes from having to hand collect each time
Yeah.
those that would otherwise just approve.
Mhm.
And so they've already approved, and they've been notified, but if you'd like to opt your kid out of attending this field trip, here's the process for it. I think we would still plan, I don't want to speak, that's what I would plan to have in place.
Yeah, certainly the online is a wonderful efficiency. I just hope that it wouldn't,
Mhm.
wind up being a blanket for the year.
The other thing, best practice would still be, I would anticipate our teachers still reaching out to parents and saying, this is a trip, this is the time. This is what's going on. If you'd like to opt your kid out, let us know and we'll arrange something alternatively for the student to do.
So we're framing the online portion as an optional check the box when you're registering, or are we saying that everyone will?
It would be a
We're gonna try
nice,
to get everybody to
if
check
everybody
the
would
box.
kind of give sort of a permission. And of course, they have the option to opt out of a particular thing, but it's a
Yeah.
general permission. That I'm okay with my kid, kind of like we do with like the media releases and some of those things. I'm generally
Mhm.
okay with my kid attending field trips, but I think it would still, best practice would be for us to still have teachers notify parents, hey, we're going at this time. If you're not comfortable with your kid going, even though you've given kind of a blanket permission for field trips, let us know and we'll arrange something for them to do.
Mhm.
I interpreted Aaron's question as, like, parents have to fill it out as part of registration. Can my child go on field trips? Do I give a blanket permission? Do I not give a blanket permission? If I don't give a blanket permission, then I just give permission for each event.
Right, and that's the question I was
Yeah.
trying to.
And now the reverse of that is if I give permission all the time, I'm still gonna be notified. So when it's the field trip to Death Valley or something, and I'm like, that didn't sound good for my child, I'm gonna opt out. But the default is, oh, you've given permission. We're not going to Death Valley. So everybody understands that. It's just an over exaggeration. I could have said,
Field trip to the fish hatchery, for example, for my kindergartner coming up. I could opt that in at the beginning of the year or wait until the actual
upcoming moment to opt in.
Yep.
Yeah, see no issue with this then.
Yeah, but it just kind of depends if they say, yes, my child can go on field trips, then then the parent has to opt out. And the reverse of that is if they opt out, then they have to opt in. Is there a question out there?
I think we were, thinking about the registration commission opt in and then parents have the opportunity if they want to opt out later on. They wouldn't have to opt in then.
Yeah, you're either Aaron signs up and says, my child can go on all field trips. And so then the field trip comes around, he goes, that doesn't sound very good for my child, I'm gonna opt out.
Or alternatively, I decide not to check the box when I'm registering, and as each come up, then I'm essentially required to opt my child in. So that
Hopefully
they,
no one would be doing that, because it just requires
We
us
would
to
be
have a
sending
list
Permission slips
of
every
who
time.
can, just like the media releases.
That's a balance of trying to create that efficiency, so.
which is my question, if we're mandating check this box when I register or not, and what does that set us up for?
That's how we are right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I assume there's a list that every principal has of these, or if there are any parents who don't check that box, is there ever a time that we have parents who
For the
don't?
media releases there. That was the,
Yeah, but for the field trips, do people pretty much?
we don't have field trips on there right now.
No, and so that's my question. Well, my question would be, what's our current system?
Mixing it with.
So when we do this then and add this in and do Power School, let's say there are 6 kids in every grade who the parents don't check it, then we'll have that, the principals will have that list so that when we do have field trips, then they'll get a paper field trip.
The teachers will have that list.
The teachers will have the list, okay.
Because right now, because we don't have it now.
Slips or some electronic, but I think going into high school, it's pretty much all paper slips or signed permission slips that are coming, and so everybody's doing it every time. And the idea here maybe would be, if in general you're okay with your kids attending field trips, you could save yourself a lot of paperwork as a parent and forms getting lost, just, okay, I generally give consent, with the idea that notification would still come that this is a trip that's happening. So as far as managing the paperwork and flow, that's, I think, where the intent of this change comes in. But I understand what you're saying about sort of potentially mandating that thou shalt check the box to be able to complete registration versus, and for us, it's just a matter of then of having to constantly track the kids or the parents that haven't checked the box, which is somewhat inefficient, but we would obviously need to be able to do that.
Yeah, one of the challenges I see would be a child with separated parents. So parent signs box at the beginning of the year, however, it's called parent A and parent B.
Yeah.
Parent A has checked the box saying, yep, good for the whole year, but parent B actually has the child on the date of said field trip. And yes, they're hypothetically getting an email or paper slip that's telling them about trip, but that's my fear, that one of 2 parents in a separated situation wouldn't have all the info.
May that be the same problem though at when you send it out, a physical slip, let's say before a field trip, and it goes home with somebody, you don't really know if both parents are going to sign that. One parent would normally sign it, I assume, so that you'd be kind of in the same boat there, wouldn't you? Possibly. I mean, so if the slip goes home with the son and the parent who gets the slip checks the box, we don't know if there's mom and dad aren't living together. So we're just getting somebody that's authorizing that trip.
Yeah, I just think this policy can't solve all the issues.
Right. Yeah.
That are out there, but if, as a minimum, it's authorizing, Power School or some other electronic, email from a parent possibly, or a phone call, that's progress, anything to reduce the need for paperwork. So the bus is getting ready to leave and, child is calling mom saying, I can't go unless you get a piece of paper down here right now. Well, if at least mom could send an email or go on Power School and click yes, that's progress.
I think this makes sense, but one thing I think I might recommend that if you do put this in at time of registration where somebody says, yes, I want to go, I do give authorization. I think you should have opportunity to check, yes, I authorize carte blanche for my field trips, or no, I don't. Because if we leave it and they don't say that if we leave it that unless they opt out, we assume that they're opting in. I think it'd be a good if there would be a check mark either way, so that somebody gets hurt on a field trip and it's kind of like, you know what, I didn't read that whole form. I didn't opt out. I really didn't know what was happening, and my kid gets hurt and then come back and sue you. So it may make sense to have a box for opting in and opting out both. Like either I authorize it or I don't authorize it.
Yeah, that's the plan, is to have just a yes, no statement.
Yep.
And notification either way.
Yep.
If they're no, they're still gonna get notified. If they're yes, they're still gonna get notified. This is not gonna cover every student in all our buildings, but with any luck, this will reduce the amount of slips coming back. Hopefully 80% of the students will be covered, and so then we'll have to track down fewer students. Maybe 90%. But understanding that we currently are doing 100% of the students, so any amount of reducing of work for teachers, parents, and students to be efficient is what the goal of this is. And again, wonderful discussion for a first reading.
Yeah. Okay. Discussed thoroughly. Let's move on.
We usually make motion to, yeah, and approve.
Are we,
I move that we approve the first reading as written on Sam's copy
Yeah,
subject
with the
to
addition
possible?
of Power School.
yeah.
Give me a second.
We need a second. Brian with the second. Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next, our annual ritual. It sounds horrible, but I think people that have been around a little while realize that we're not terminating anybody, but, two terminations.
Two terminations, our homeschool, we reduced their contract from 1.0 down to, for Bonnie, we go down to 0.5, and for Kelly, we go to 0.8. Then when we get registrations in the fall, we kind of finalize, we actually have a formula that works out super well, so they kind of know before we have the meeting what a full load is. So, and Bonnie and Kelly are aware that this happens every year. So I just need someone to read the motion that I pulled up on my computer, because it's about page 3.
I move that the recommendation of the superintendent be accepted and that the 1.0 FTE employment contract of Bonnie Johnson as an HSAP teacher be terminated effective at the end of the 2023-24 school year for the reasons that were set forth in the superintendent's notice and recommendation to terminate the contract of Bonnie Johnson. I further move that the additional recommendation of the superintendent be accepted and that Bonnie Johnson be issued a 0.5 FTE continuing teacher contract for the 24-25 school year. Did you want me to do that whole thing?
Yeah, you made the motion, that you,
Okay, so that's a
Oh, that's
motion.
my motion.
That's a
your motion, we
motion.
need a second now.
Okay.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay,
Ready?
roll call. Yep.
Discussion, okay. Aaron,
Aye.
Carol,
Aye.
Cindy,
Aye.
Ron,
Aye.
Brian.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, that motion carries for the first one.
Okay, now ditto, with regards to Kelly Johnson.
And the change in the recommendation is just Kelly's would be reissued a 0.8 copy. And
Do I need to read the whole thing or can I just read the 0.8?
I would think that it's appropriate to say, Kelly Johnson and
Just read the whole thing.
Well, Ron wants to hopefully that's
Okay.
also fine.
I move that
That's
the
very quick.
recommendation of the superintendent be accepted and that the 1.0 FTE employment contract of Kelly Johnson as an HSAP teacher be terminated effective at the end of the 23-24 school year for the reasons that were set forth in the superintendent's notice and recommendation to terminate the contract of Kelly Johnson. I further move that the additional recommendation of the superintendent be accepted and that Kelly Johnson be issued a 0.8 FTE continuing teacher contract for the 24-25 school year.
I'll move to second.
Aaron, go ahead.
Okay. Motion and second, roll call.
Brian,
Aye.
Carol,
Aye.
Cindy,
I,
Cindy, we didn't, okay,
Ron,
Aye.
Aaron.
aye.
That motion carries.
Okay. Next, item, approval of revised procurement card program manual.
And Kathy, prepared this and went ahead and also prepared us all the changes in a Cliff Notes type document that summarizes it. But Kathy, I'll defer to you. Is there anything else to add to your notes?
Just that it was 10 years old and needed to be updated.
Okay,
Any substantive changes or,
No,
well, the fact that it's 10 years old, I guess indicates that it's worked pretty well.
yes.
I'll make a motion that we accept the changes to the procurement card, as outlined by Kathy.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you, Kathy, for the updates. School calendar, an update regarding this year, since we seem to have had more snow days in March than in January.
yeah, and, a couple weeks ago, our last day of school was gonna be on a Wednesday, and I actually had someone who will not be identified call me up and say, hey, what are we gonna do with those extra hours? Like, we're getting out on a Wednesday, and I said, well, we could still have snow days, and I think both of us jinxed it, because we had 2 snow days. But right now, we end on Friday, May 24th. That's kind of an important day. We would like that to remain the last day of school because we do have a middle school rough project starting, among other things. That doesn't mean that we're not, like, if we have a bad weather day, we won't say, oh, we can't cancel school anymore because of the rough. We will still have the same, like, if you can't drive on the road, like when Chris called the other day and said he could barely get in on Locust Road, we canceled. We'll still keep student safety in mind and cancel school if for some reason we have more weather days. And we did have one last year, April 15th, 16th, something like that. So we hope we're out of the woods, but we understand if we're not. So just kind of reiterating the plan we had earlier in the year. We've used that whole week of days. Now we can dip into that bank, which was kind of our reserve. And we have enough to cover about 3 days, just short an hour. So if we would have 3 more snow days, we would have those be forgivable snow days for students. And then we would have to make sure our calendar had 1 hour and 1.05 hours added back in, which we could accommodate with a Wednesday or the last day of school. If for some reason we have more than 3 days and we have run through our bank of hours, then we would, as a last resort, transition to virtual days. We've just been doing the virtual hours now. Obviously, I hope I'm putting together a worst case scenario because I just presented what we're gonna do for the next 6 snow days. And it is April 8th. So, or snow, I guess it's weather days. I mean, there could always be something with heat or power or something to that effect. But again, I had a few emails like, now, when's our last day and what are we doing? And so make sure the board aware. We've got administrator meeting this week where we'll kind of review what the forgiveness of snow days or weather days would be for all other staff, because students wouldn't have to make it up, but then we'd have to address what it would look like for staff. So And we'll talk about it tomorrow at district leadership team, so they can be on board. But that was just, an agenda item, just to kind of make sure we understood what it was, and maybe that'll get in the paper that the last day of school is Friday, May 24th.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed until we have the seventh day, then we're in trouble, Ross.
Okay, so no motion or anything required there.
No, no.
So, onward and upward.
We had a book donation, so all book donations are coming in through the board now, and so I recommend that we accept this book donation.
We need a motion.
Yeah. Yes,
I would move that we accept this book donation from Michaela Seaman, and thank her very much for such a generous donation to the Cary Lee Library.
I second the motion.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? The donation is approved.
Can I ask you one quick question? I should have done that in the discussion phase, but Tim, isn't there a committee that looks at these? Didn't you in the previously?
no, the committee worked on the board policy. In the past, the librarians would accept the books, and with the new policy, we just put in there that they would come to the board. Kind of nothing else to help protect the librarians.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I remember that now. Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, one of the issues, opportunities, I guess, maybe a better way of looking at it, as we hope to engage in construction at some point in the future. The state has permitted a new development, a new way of going about building buildings, construction manager at risk. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, so as a discussion, and I know board members have questions, that I'll help answer, and maybe there's a couple board members who I think have listened, to construction manager at risk. So in a general, design, build project, the school has a building project, and you come up with, an architect comes up with plans, you pass a bond issue, then you have bids go out, and a general contractor takes those bids, or, you hire the lowest bidder, and then they get all the subcontractors that build the school. The new thing is where instead of hiring a general contractor, you hire a construction manager at risk that manages all of the plans and does the subcontractors. I attended a couple different sessions on this, and talked to a couple folks. Of course, they want to sell us our services. And Cindy and I sat in with Larson Construction that does this on Thursday. I met with a different person on Wednesday. I hadn't really thought about engaging with a construction manager at risk until after the bond passed, because I didn't want to, number one, I don't know, obviously it's a board decision. I see some advantages to it. There's a huge disadvantage of it adds another layer and another cost to the project. The advantages to construction manager at risk is they can work with the architects, they can work with the subcontractors and make sure that things stay on budget. The other advantages are they're more expertise than anyone we have at school. I just talked to Hampton Dumont superintendent this afternoon. They're using a construction manager at risk. They've got a bond coming up in November. He said they're helping our architect get the plans ready to go so that when it passes, it'll be a faster build. They're also helping attend meetings so that when people say, can you do the ductwork this way or something? That's a question that the school personnel we're not experts in that area. So he thought that the efficiency of the process, the ability to help it pass, and to make sure that things are done correctly, were why Hampton Dumont's going with a construction manager at risk. I talked to Nick a little bit this afternoon, our architect. He has worked, while he's doing the Hampton Dumont project, he is working with construction managers at risk. He said, he's not against it, he's not for it. He said it's more of a board decision. He thinks that this will be a very attractive project here in Decorah, and that we won't have problems getting a general contractor. So, to bid it. That being said, I know the high school project was a more complicated process, and there were probably a few more change orders for that, but they may have been out of, this isn't just building from scratch, this was renovating what already existed. So I'll take a break. I know Cindy and I were at the same meeting, and, you know, Brian, I know you have talked to folks, but I'll let other people talk for a little bit.
Well, I know I can just chime in a little bit. The first time I got exposed to this, or one of the first times I got exposed to it, or maybe the second time, was you and I, Tim, sat in that at the ISB together when they gave that conversation about, you know, construction managers at risk, not at risk, and different opportunities, and especially since a law was just passed within the last few years, right, in order to the districts be able to do this. And it's not new. Construction managers are not new, but it's new to school districts being able to do it, from what I understand. Um, you know, I think, you know, I'm not saying that absolutely 100% makes sense, but I do know I'm not too sure if it actually would add cost, another layer of cost, um, because you're not going to be dealing with a general contractor. So a general contractor goes out and he gets bids from all these subcontractors, and the subcontractors bring the bids back to him. He puts together his best proposal or his best bid and presents that to the school district. So he's got profit by doing that, as being the general contractor, and he deserves some profit, going to an awful lot. So with I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, that by having this other situation for for this gentleman or the construction manager at risk, they're going to go out and they're going to get bids. They're working closely with the architect. An advantage of this, a couple different advantages. I think one is they can work with the architect and they say, you know, for instance, I'm not too sure. I'll use the actual, for instance, that I think might be true. I think Greg might tell us that, or may agree that probably the heating electrical system we have in high schools probably isn't the best one that's out there. And if we did it again, we probably wouldn't have used that one. So a construction manager would sit down this architect. If you don't have a construction manager at risk, you have an architect saying, this is what we think we want to do in this particular project. And they put it out and they say, this is what we're going to do. And we don't know any better. So that's what happens. Where you have a construction manager can work with the architect and say, hey, maybe for this, you know, this is what you think might be the best one, but what do you think about this because of costs going forward for maintenance and cost for electricity and gas and different things? Maybe we should look at this, and they can work those things out. And then they send those out to these bids out to different contractors, and they submit them. We know exactly what the construction manager risk is going to make because his fees are up front, and we know what they are. But they can sit down and talk to plumbing and heating guy and say, yeah, we bid this, we designed it, you're thinking something else makes sense. And we never see what a subcontractor presents to the general, and we don't want to be too involved here by any means, but we would see what, if we wanted to, what subcontractors submitted and what their bids were. And so we had access and opportunity to look at that, which I think it also makes some sense. But I guess when I started saying it might but not been real clear, is the construction manager is going to show us his fee up front. We know what their profit's going to be. The general contractor is going to have profits too. So we're not being double dip by having a general contractor that's having profit and a construction manager having profit. The construction manager's profit or fee may take place of the profit that the general contractor would have. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think in my mind, the reason why you would do this is to know that you're essentially getting a not to exceed price.
It's another benefit. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you're not going to have a bunch of change orders that, you know what, we were lean and mean and we want to get as much school as we possibly can for X number of dollars, but then all of a sudden the architect's going to put in a 20% or whatever contingency fee, but and that contingency fee could cut into what we wanted to do with the particular project. But this way it's up front. We know what that fee is going to be. I think there's some value there. Another thing that a construction manager does is by getting it early and involved before it goes out to bid. Again, they're working with the architect to come up with plans and the best way to construct this building, and they're working together, not as adversaries, but they're working together. And they can come up with almost a quite firm estimate of what that project's going to be. So if you think, you need to get to a bonding situation and what your bonding capacity is, a construction manager working with architect and talking to other contractors, they will come up with an estimate that they think that we should use when we go out for bonding. And they may look at 2 or 3 different options. So how much school can we get? Well, that's what their job is, and they do that earlier on than we would having our architect say, I'm going to use $350 a square foot, and it's kind of what I used in the past. And I think this going to be good. Another thing is, which I think is good about, not just because of a construction manager, but just giving an idea. I'm on the airport commission, and we were looking at an airport project up there last year, and it was supposed to be, gosh, I can't remember, $1.5 million, something like that. And we had one general contractor that bid it, and it was hundreds of thousands of dollars over the estimate. And we stopped the project. We just didn't do it. Since then, the engineer and the architect came back and said, hey, there's a lot of contractors out there hungry right now. And we rebid the project, pretty much verbatim the project we had before. And we have at least one contractor says, I know my bid will be around that figure that you were looking at a year ago. Lots and lots of things have changed in the construction industry. Steel is more readily available. And we're pretty sure we're going to get 8 or 9 bids on it this year. We had 1 last year. So we might be, that isn't telling you a whole lot about a construction manager portion or not, but I think we're in a situation now that we're probably going to have a lot more subcontractors looking at the project, or more generals if we go the general route as well.
Go ahead, Cindy.
I was just going to add on that to really concisely say, I think a construction manager at risk brings a different perspective and would help the school district be as informed as possible with sharing information to the public and going toward a bond. I do realize that by hiring a construction manager at risk, that it comes with a fee, of course. But the thing that's most important to me is that we have a project that is financially responsible and in budget, that will pass in November, to retain teachers, to have a quality, safe building for our students to be in. And I think that with the information that's been shared with us, I just feel like that would help us be as informed as possible. I think there's a lot at risk by not having a bond pass in November. I worry about teacher retention. I worry about, enrollment changes, with frustration of that building, whatever. And another thing to add, similar to the example that Brian stated with the airport, the person that Travis from Larson Construction that Tim and I met with shared an example. Again, he used the steel example. Contractors are informed of what supplies are readily available. So for example, if he knows that steel is readily available and at an affordable price, the construction manager at risk could make recommendations for materials that might not delay the project. If an architect had recommended a different material, not being as informed, it just helps us think about the project from more than one perspective is the most concise way to say it.
So typically do, construction managers at risk, do they have their own business or do they work for a company of a group?
So, the recommendation that I've gotten, Russell is a construction company, Larson is a construction company, Estes is a construction company. So the idea is they're kind of branching out, but one of the things that was pointed out to me by the Hampton Dumont superintendent was because they're construction companies, they hire subs, but occasionally they hire themselves, or if they need to save money on the project, they say, oh, we can pour that cement, or we can do that. So yeah, some of the cost when they're going to get it, or when they're going to hire the subcontractors that your general contractor would do,
Mhm.
they may just turn around and hire themselves. So,
But this construction manager at risk, like who are they? Who do they work for?
well, Larson Construction has a branch of their construction company. They were our general contractor on the high school.
Also, the
But
general
they-
contractors have their own,
Yeah, it'd be like adding a, like, I don't know. It's a company that says, hey, we should expand our business. Let's add let's add construction manager at risk. So,
but wouldn't you want someone who was independent from the contractors or subcontractors being your advocate here?
I think I can answer that. I think we would, if we did an RFP for construction managers at risk, we would get construction managers that don't use their own contractors. And we would get someone like Larson that can use their own contractors for part of it. So, yeah, there are a lot of construction managers that really don't do any or much of the work themselves.
and then that, it might be someone out of Des Moines or the Quad Cities that wanted to do the Decorah project, and it's just doesn't make sense to have their company come up and do some of the project or any of the project. So,
So then would all of the payment from I'm just trying to understand how this whole thing works, because I've never heard of it before.
yeah, we would have our contract with
Yes.
we would have a contract, and I've
So all
never
the
used
bills would go through this
construction
construction
manager.
manager at risk to us, and then we would pay the construction manager at risk, and they would pay all of the.
That's my understanding how it works. Now, I've not seen it for like the high school project. We would have gotten pay stubs from all the generals and Kathy would pay them, or that's how the middle school project or any of the other projects works, where you pay those off.
Mhm.
But,
Can I add one more thing and maybe this might clarify a little bit? So when you do a bid like we did at the high school or other schools, we go to an architect, in our case, Nick. He draws up the plans. He draws up the plans that how he thinks the heating should be and the plumbing should be and the electrical and the concrete and all those things. And he's the one that's looking at it. He puts the plans together and general contractors bid it. No, no discussion, no, well, God, I wish I wish they would have had a contractor, general contractor looks at it, or subcontractor goes, oh my God, that's not the heating. I could save them a lot of money by doing this versus what he was thinking. Okay. So with a general contractor, with a regular bid scenario, Nick and his folks would drop the plans. It goes out to general contractors and they bid it, and that's the way they bid it, period. With a construction manager, you hire them earlier. Nick starts drawing plans or says, this is what I would like to do. They meet with the construction manager, and the construction manager goes, yeah, that's okay. But how about this? How about we design it this way? And maybe look at a different type of a roof, maybe look at a different heating system. And together they go, you know what, that probably does make more sense. And we can save some money economically by doing this. They work together and they bring some stuff to us and say, this might be more expensive right up front, but it may be cheaper to maintain going forward. They don't have to bring it to us, but they might. So you've got the value of more than one person designing the building and having more opportunities to design the building that might cost less to build. Okay. So, and they get a fee for it, but you don't have a general contractor. And I think that's nice because you're having, there were several things on the airport project that, the architect drew it up, And, contractors that bid it say, you know what, I could have been, you didn't need to have this particular air exchanger. You could use this air exchanger. And, would have saved us $70,000 on a particular, or 40,000 or whatever it is. So by having another set of eyes helping build it and help, that's where there's some value that also could be some value that could end up helping the project from a financial standpoint. So.
Wondering, Kathy, do you have any perspective on this? I'm thinking that this might make things much more, or reduce a lot of work for you compared to the last project, because somebody else is responsible for getting all those bills.
Well, I was gonna say it'd be probably a lot less change orders.
Mhm.
You know, like you said, every time you ran into a problem, let's fix it this way. Some change orders are up, some are down, most of them were up.
Yeah. I don't think we're gonna do anything to reduce the price.
Well, if you want to eliminate something.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
I think a
Oh.
really big value at the beginning is if we think we have X number of dollars we want to spend and have our taxes at a certain dollar amount, the construction manager at risk is going to help us make sure that we get as much money bang for a buck with that. And it's going to be pretty much guaranteed. That's where the at risk part comes in. And then you don't have to say, gosh, we had a contingency of 20% on 20 million or $4 million contingency and we didn't use it, or we didn't use it wisely. This situation here, that's what they bid is pretty much what you're gonna pay. So
Yeah, unless we
I'm done talking.
initiate a change order and say, oh, we want to add 2 more classrooms. Well, obviously that changes the price, but unless it's our idea to make a change, it's their dime.
Right.
So my understanding on all of this, just to rehash it quickly, we still have an architect. We're working through them to draw up the plans, the schematics, to effectively lay it out to the specifications we're hoping for, a number of classrooms, traffic flow, etc. Construction manager at risk comes in and says, I'm gonna look at this with another set of eyes, make sure it all flows the way it should, and then they take care of building, subcontracting out or building it themselves, the project, and they've worked hand in hand with the architect from an earlier phase then. I don't see a negative to this. The question on my mind is, what is the right timeline to hire said person? Does it need to be now? Election is in November, so how far in advance does this person need to be in place to help with these
Well,
plans?
I think it's something where, if we set out an RFP and hire somebody now, it doesn't mean the clock doesn't start running until we give them something to manage, they're not getting paid by, the month or anything.
and in my mind, the construction manager at risk, if we brought one on board, we would bring one on after a successful bond. My mind kind of shifted a little bit last week because I met with 2 construction managers at risk and kind of talked a little bit about where the project was going. The advantage to getting someone on board now, the disadvantage is you start paying them.
Yeah.
The advantage is that the plans are now being worked on. The plans are ready to go after the bond passes in the fall. So that the time of, you'll have less lag there and you can actually start construction in the spring of 25 rather than the summer of 25, which could, with any luck, then mean that the school would open in the fall of 26 rather than I always thought the school was gonna open in the winter of 27. So there's an ability to have things be sped up with the construction manager. So the advantage, to your point of why would we hire the construction manager now? So the plans are ready to go, help passing the bond. That I've heard that a couple times, but I also heard it from Hampton Dumont was, yeah, they're coming to meetings. They're helping us explain parts of the project to the community when the community asks those specific questions that I'm not gonna be able to answer. And they can also help with the price, kind of knowing what things cost, as kind of Brian alluded to. So, that being said, we can continue to have more discussion. I could suggest that, I think some people have, you know, had more time with this idea in their brain than other, members of the board. We've got a meeting next Monday. We're just gonna have a discussion. We could have an actual, if we want to put a vote for, should we go out for an RFP, we could put it on Monday and decide on Monday. And in the interim, this week, I can set up a meeting with construction manager at risk and invite board members that want to learn more to those meetings. And obviously, these are salespeople, so they're gonna tell you that it's a great idea.
Yeah, right.
But to be aware of how the process works, that's, I would offer that out, just because I think some people, you know, have been thinking about this for a while. And it's kind of new information and
I'd be interested in doing that, and, I think, and also maybe to talk to maybe more in detail to the other districts who have used
sure.
this and get us some more details. I feel like I need more time to process this.
No, that's,
Especially since we're just at the beginning stages of putting out a survey and getting ideas of what, the facility committee wants and what the public wants. I mean, we're not really ready to give any specs to either an
No.
architect or a construction manager at risk yet, but that will be coming up very soon.
mhm.
Like the major point is, you know, putting out an RFP does not commit us to doing anything or spending a dime. You know, it's a request for people to come and make their pitch, but it's not a commitment.
Yeah, and now I guess I've been the third thing. We could just put the RFP out and we could still decide if we want to do it.
Yeah.
I just hate for people to respond to an RFP if the board is still deciding, you know, and in fairness to them, although their RFP process is probably very similar for, you know, they probably have one ready to go, but
Yeah,
so.
When you put out an RFP, what do you think the timeline is then for people responding and for hiring someone?
well, whatever we dictate as your proposal must be submitted by date X, they'll, yeah, you give them, you know, multiple weeks to respond, certainly.
I would think by the May board meeting, we'd still be okay even if we decide on Monday. And being as we've got two companies that have already expressed interest, and I can reach out to other companies that I've got recommended that know that we're thinking about it. That won't be a surprise that an RFP might be coming from Decorah. You know, like I said, I think a lot of the RFPs are mostly written and, you know, they just change a few things.
Change the name.
So Tim,
So-
question, what school did you say that Nick's working with a construction manager on now?
The one that I talked to today was Hampton Dumont. I've got a call in with the guy at Muscatine. He's not using Nick, he's just using a different one.
Okay.
North Scott, had a nice talk with them. They haven't gotten to the construction manager at risk, per se. They just worked with Russell as construction manager, agent, and they didn't mind that either. But I like the at risk. If we do something, I would recommend we do the at risk because that takes the risk away from Decorah and the change orders that we want to avoid, especially on a new build. So.
Hampton Dumont, they had a bond issue that didn't pass, correct?
Yeah, so they're engaging with a construction manager at risk, and that's one of the things. They're getting the designs, what they're saying are ready to go, but they're also, their construction manager at risk is helping them with the bond. So like when they have they're having, since they've had a failed bond from last November, they kind of picked up that process and they're farther along, of course. And they're having the public meetings and their construction manager at risk is attending those meetings and answering the questions for the public.
And did the first bond, they just went out to a general bid through a general looking for a general contractor? They did that?
It was a bond. I think they had the design, what is it? Design build. There's they were doing the general contractor.
Not design build, that's the one that's still illegal
Yes.
for public entities.
Yeah,
For some reason.
design bid build. They were doing a design bid build.
So they went to a regular bonding, like a regular bid like we did before, like with the high school. That didn't work. So the second time around, they decided to go the
Construction manager at risk. So
Okay.
they didn't pass 56%. Is what they got. So they feel like they're close and they feel like with a little bit of refinement, they could get there.
Got it.
So a construction manager at risk is not required to take low bids?
They're not required to take low bids because, they're doing they bid with us. So, they're not required to take low bids, I don't believe, but that's a good question for when we have our meeting this week.
One more situation on the at-risk scenario is when, let's say we had a couple great contractors in Decorah that we really would like to work on our project. And a regular bidding process as we've done in the past, if the general contractor gets the bid and he doesn't use local contractors, we're sitting there going, we can tell our constituents, it's kind of like, yeah, you know what, our hands were tied. The general contractor didn't use them, nothing we can do. But with this where we have the construction manager at risk, we will see the bids, or we can see the bids, and we can look at them and say, well, we would not do it through Tim or somebody else. Says, you know what, our local contractor was $150,000 less than a contractor that's from La Crosse or Rochester. So we can't, that information will be able to be conveyed. It's not that, we just didn't want somebody in Decorah. There was a dollar spread, and we would love to have the local contractor get it, but we didn't, and here's why. The contractor at risk surely could, in the right way, especially with the local contractors, with not throwing them under the bus, but there's more information that can be out there that you can't with a general bid process.
Interesting.
So do we want to defer a decision on the RFP until after Monday, or I would imagine we're certainly not time sensitive right now, that.
Oh, yeah, I would think we could just put it on Monday's agenda.
Yeah.
So I think that's
Carol,
Yes.
thanks for asking for what you need, and I'm glad that you're interested in having a meeting to hear more about this process. If a week, I'm curious how you feel about putting this decision on next Monday. Does 1 week seem like enough time?
Yes, I think it would be fine, especially if I could gather more information between now and then.
And I guess we would leave it as, since we'll set the agenda on Thursday or Friday, if we don't have enough information by then, we will not put it on Monday's agenda.
Okay, that's good. I appreciate the discussion. This was a lot more information than what I had, so it's a lot to chew on. Been good
Yeah.
discussion.
It certainly is a rather complex topic that is not self-apparent. Okay, well, let's hear the superintendent's report.
Let's make sure I've got this. I think the big thing I was gonna highlight in the superintendent's report was, well, we're getting close to having the survey ready to launch. Probably tomorrow, maybe Wednesday. Postcards, I think, are in the mail. Thank you very much, Cindy, for your help, as a direct mail person. And so if nothing else, community members will get a postcard that kind of advertises Decorah, that will come to their mailbox and ask them to do a survey, and there's a QR code they can scan. Or they can type in decorahsurvey.org. And just kind of, one of.
Survey with some of their ideas on the new.
Yeah, so the facility committee, one of the things we talked about with this facility committee, make sure we weren't going backwards. And talking to Jerry Gallagher with the Donovan Group, one of the things he said was, okay, so the facility committee is gonna decide if we need a new elementary. And I think those of us that were in the room were like, that's gonna feel like we just went back 15 years. So we're kind of unique in the sense that recommendation for a new elementary has been made to the board multiple times.
After a lot of different
I have
criteria.
a lot of different criteria.
Looked at the building
Yeah,
sites, et
we
cetera.
looked at remodeling, so it's not really a question of why we need a new building. We know we need a new building and, we know that building a new building is more cost effective than remodeling the existing one. The board made a decision on where we would build the building when we purchased the rest of the Hively Island and made a significant investment there. So asking those questions in the survey kind of seemed like we're just checking a box and we're not recognizing the work that's been done. So it really gets down to kind of the what, what are your questions about the project? What are we building? And so that's what the survey kind of focused on. The survey does, it's only 3 pages. Page 1 is an introduction. Page 2 is kind of a demographics. Who are you? Do you have children? How long have you lived in the district? And then page 3, when it kind of asks for your input and there's some open-ended questions, and there's also a drop down of what you'd like to see, but it also tells about here's what's happened. So there's a part of the survey that educates it tells as well as it asks. And so that's ready to go out. We've got versions of the website, but we've also got some flyers that'll come out. And one of the flyers just has a timeline of all the things we've done for the last 15 years. And every time a recommendation's been made to the board. And it's a lot. So, but yeah, we didn't want to send out a survey pretending like I know a new elementary school is a brand new idea, because it certainly is not.
And Tim, can you explain too about, of course, the survey is going to be available digitally on a digital form, but there's going to be paper copies in multiple, in Spanish as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, we'll have paper copies, and I think the contact number is Christy Rothman here at the district office, and her phone number and email, so that she can put stuff in the mail if people need a mailed copy, or if they want to. Christy's a very easy person to talk to. They could probably just tell their survey responses to Christy, and she could enter it for them if they wanted. But yeah, we'll have stuff available. What we don't want to do is maybe send stuff home in every child's notebook, especially since we'll put it on Facebook pages, and there'll be lots of ways for parents to engage, but we will have paper copies available for people. Absolutely. So that's coming out. Tax rate wise, now that we have SSA at 2.5%, when Kathy and I looked the other day, the tax rate was $12.31, which is kind of within that range of $12.30 to $12.40, which our tax rate has been the last couple of years. Exciting part of the legislature is the minimum for teachers. Next year for all teachers will be $47,500. And for teachers with 12 years of experience, it will be $60,000. And so we're going to start like I put in my notes, this is fantastic. This is great news, fantastic for some, but it's just kind of working through what that's going to look like for each person, because for some people that could be a $7,500 raise, and we don't have the funds to give everybody a $7,500 raise. So there is, of course, going to be compaction. Everybody knows that, but trying to come up with the best plan for Decorah. I feel like we've got a nice relationship with the association, and we've already had some preliminary talks on what maybe we could do, and we'll continue to have those. But obviously, there'll be some really big winners out of this, and then there'll be some people who won't get as much, but we're going to try to make sure that it works. And one of the thoughts in the back of my mind is maybe it's a 2-year deal, so people know that if I don't get it the first year, that there's an opportunity for the second year. So, and the AEA funding is in there. I kind of put in that chart. We're still having those internal discussions, but one of the questions that districts have to answer is, are you giving 100% of your media and educational services funds to the state, or to the AEA next year? Or as a district, do you want to keep your 60% and only get 40% of educational services and media services? The tough part of that is it can't really define what you get for 40% of educational services and media services, but I'm kind of assuming that we'll just do 100% next year and then kind of evaluate as we go, but we're at least having discussions. And part of the discussions is we've got different pockets of staff that maybe use more services at the AA than we realized. One of them was I didn't realize homeschool used it as often. So, but a good discussion to kind of look at what we use for the AA services. And then if you retire July of 24, between July of 24, but before July of 27, the IPERS, qualified retirement is only 1 month instead of 4. So there's a loophole that's been opened to get retired teachers to come back into the teaching field. And so I put a little slide in there on some of the calculations of that, because you could technically you could retire in June, start drawing your IPERS in July, be retired, and come back and work for a district in August, which, especially if you were in a hard to fill area, could be a game changer for some of those things if folks wanted to do that. And so that window opened, it wasn't open for anyone who retired in July of 23, just to clarify, but it is open starting this year. So that's interesting to see. Will be interesting to see what staff do with that information as well. So we had a great bus inspection, and we're waiting to hear on our request to join the Upper Iowa Conference, which got delayed from last Wednesday. Should find out next Wednesday.
This is an official type request?
This is an official, mailed them a letter, asked them to join the Upper Iowa Conference request. So
they'll review it on Wednesday and we'll hear feedback
yeah,
immediately.
I would think immediately. And if we don't hear directly, I know that there's at least one newspaper or media person that's going to call them very shortly after they end their meeting and ask them what happened. I've gone on and looked at some one district's board minutes, and they voted not to accept Decorah. So I will not be surprised if the Upper Iowa declines our request to join. But what always needs to be said is we will be at conference in 25, 26. This will just be a little different format for us, or a different pathway.
But I would like to chime in and say that Adam Riley has really done a great job of communicating with schools in our region, and I trust that our admin team is working as hard as they can to find the best possible solution.
I would agree, and Adam and I probably talk about once a week about different scenarios, and we've obviously applied to the Upper Iowa, but we continue to work on other possibilities. If those become available, we'll let the board know.
All right, we'll conclude with financials.
If you look at the cash flow, again, revenues are up this month. We received our instructional support surtax in March, so that was $263,000 for that payment. And our expenses are up also, but not as bad as less than what the revenue is, so that's always a good thing. Most of our funds are doing fine. We've got the ones that are gone down with the Pepple and Save with purchases. General fund is a little down this month compared to last year, maybe about 200,000. And then our management is always increasing because we're using that right now as a buffer.
And we understand that we're hoping to build up some fund balance in management fund, because when we have a passed bond, we'll put less money into management fund because we'll have more debt service, which will be one of the ways that we'll have a flatter tax rate. That's one of the reasons we can say we can pass this bond and not raise your taxes, or not dramatically raise your taxes. We'll be within that range.
Right. Any questions or discussion?
Just continued thanks to our financial guru.
Yes, definitely.
You're appreciated, Kathy.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, hearing nothing more, we're adjourned.
Thanks, Brian and Cindy.
Yep.
Thank you. Good